Hello and welcome to my gallery here in southwest France. I'm Diana, I'm a watercolourist. Today I'm up in my apartment. The gallery's closed and it's nice and cosy and warm here in the apartment. In fact, I just finished editing my last video on the sea and sky sunset, and I have in front of me the next subject, which I just can't not paint. Way back at the end of November, it was my birthday, and I was given a bouquet of 3 roses. Believe it or not, these are the 3 roses. They've lasted longer than I've ever known a rose last. They are looking a little bit sadder now, but they're so beautiful. And I've decided I must paint them. So they're going to be my next subject. So I have to paint quickly because I don't know how long they're going to stay together. I've taken them out of water just now and laid them on this tray here. So I'm going to paint them as a still life. It's going to be, well, the colours are just wonderful, and I'm going to really enjoy it. So you'll be able to follow me every step of the way. The first thing I'm going to do is to do a very quick, very brief sketch. I have my paper here, a sheet of Fabriano Artistico 100% cotton. I'll do the sketch and then you can catch up with me and see how we go. So let's paint. Now I just want to give you an overview of the way I'm going to work this. I have done a very brief and very simple sketch positioning the 3 roses. The background, it has a nuance of green and blue, and so I have to, the first thing is to just add pink to the rose form so that when I come to do the background I don't lose the opportunity to create this lovely pink. I have just 2 palettes, my permanent rose palette, which I have here all set to go, as you see, and I have a green palette which is on standby. The thing about painting from real life is that, well, these roses are not going to last very long, but I want to make a start. I've taken photographs and I will be working from photographs, and you will see the photographs in the video, and you'll also see a photograph of how they were when I received them at the end of November. Just beautiful, beautiful flowers. I just can't believe that they're still here. And they have a certain sadness about them, but a certain beauty that I want to try to capture. So I'm going to start, just basically add a hint of pink to the shape. I hope you can see it, because filming here in the apartment is not the same light as filming in the gallery, but I hope this will be the start, and then we'll move to the gallery later. Not today though, because it's too cold to be down there at the moment. So we're just adding colour, just a nuance of pink. wash the brush, and now I'll go to liner brush and get a little bit braver with the colour, just to add stronger colour in the areas where we see the shading, which is always to the left because it's lit from the right. So I'm going to spot in colour, just a hint of it, just in areas like this. This is just really giving us a basis, nothing more. Because it's wet, it won't make a line, it will just add, or give me some clues as to where I need to put the shading later. Here, similar. This one is, well, they all look a little bit saggy and a bit, the petals seem to be quite well attached still. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to leave them now. You see, we have the basic shape. I'm going to put the roses, I'm not putting them back in the water because if I move them, the petals might fall off. I'm going to leave them down in the gallery where it's cool. I can't do any more until the pink has dried, and then we can get to grips with some of the background. It's going to be interesting. Stay with me. I'll see you for the next stage. I've prepared my green and blue palette now, a combination of Winsor Blue Green shade and transparent yellow, which is just out of shot, and I'm wetting the area around the 3 pink roses, which are just about visible, as you see. Still up in the apartment and the light isn't as good up here, so I hope you can see the image properly. And I've doubled the speed of the video just so we move along quicker than if we were doing it in real time. The area around is wet, and so now I can spot in this combination of blues and greens around the roses, which being dry, the colour, the blue and green colour, won't go into the pink area around the roses. But I'm being careful not to tilt the paper too much, and I'm using the smaller mop brush now to move the colour a little. The water will always move the colour much better than I can do with the brush, and so I tend to give it chance to move and then just move the area into, if there are any little dry areas, move the colour into those dry areas. And I'm wetting around the edge of the paper now so that I don't have harsh lines. Some of you may have seen me do this before in other videos where we have a very loose and delicate, no harsh edges background, because we don't want net lines or harsh lines on the edge of the colour. And now I can use the liner brush just to move the colour into those areas around the shape of the roses, so the shape isn't too simplified. But I'm not moving it enough that we lose the blue and the green, because I like to see both the colours there. As you see, we've got more blue at the top of the page, and I'm using the mop brush now to take out some of the colour where we see the folds in the fabric. This is going to be really simplified because the fabric is very full of folds, and it would be too complex to completely try to recreate the pattern that the folds make. But it's just so that the roses nestle amongst the fabric, and that's the impression that I'm hoping to create. If I'm moving the colour whilst it's wet like this, we again won't get harsh lines. As you see from the dry paper now, we do have a certain waviness about it, which is good. And I'm just consolidating that by adding more colour in certain areas, but always moving it with water after, again, so we don't have harsh lines. The more distinctive harsh lines are for later. Now we're working with pale colour and a gentle folds, and so the water will always help us out to create this. It's a gradual build-up of texture and colour, and if you try and do it too quickly, it makes it more difficult and more stressful. Now I'm leaving the background, it is dry, and I can go into the rose detail. So I've tried to bring the image up close so you can see exactly how we're working. I'm working with the liner brush, and first of all a combination of pink and green, which will give us some browns, because the petals on the edge of this rose are withered and brown, because it is very much past its best, but I think that's part of the appeal. Don't really know why, but there we are. You can see I'm just adding a hint of colour and then just moving it with water. Again, so we don't have any harsh lines, it's just all very understated. Roses are the most complicated of flowers. And although I'm still painting from the real thing, by the way, I haven't had to resort to a photograph, because although they look a little bit more kind of collapsed, the roses are still there in their entirety, and so I'm able to use that model, which is the best way to work, really. I'm combining the greens with pink, a stronger permanent rose line you see there, and then just moving water to meet it, so that makes the outer petal have a shade of pink. I'm really thinking about this. I have speeded up the whole thing, but as you can see I do hesitate, and this is because I'm looking closely at the flower and making a decision as to where I put the colour. And it's time and concentration well spent, because I do want the rose to look as close to the real thing as possible, and having that delightful combination of pink and green and sometimes brown will give me that realism. But I hasten to add, it's not a botanical study. It is just my impression of the rose. I can leave areas of the paper dry so that the colour doesn't run into them, because there are certain parts of the petals which are light and don't require paint. This is known as painting in the negative, creating a petal by painting the area around it. And I think I'm going to do a whole video on negative painting, because it's really a difficult subject to comprehend, and it's a subject that I know my own students struggle with, and so I think it might be worthwhile to go into that subject in more detail. Now I'm using as well as a shade colour the palette of Payne's Grey and Indian Red, because mixed together those two colours will give me a very dull pink violet, which is the shade colour for the areas between the lighter petals, where the petals go deep inside the rose. And so all these colours are going in different measures, in different areas. But it is a slow process. Try it and see how you get on. Maybe choose a simpler rose than I have. I do think I've kind of jumped in the deep end with these three roses, because they are very complex, but they just got the creative juices going, and I thought I'll just have to give it a go. So hopefully you're with me all the way on this one. It's important that you get the turn of the rose, how they're all kind of, the petals are all turned together, and the shading and the light petals almost alternate. But remembering that the watercolour will always dry lighter. And so what I'm doing now, in the next frame will be much lighter, but I will have the clues I need to go in and reinforce the colour, which is what I'm hoping to do. Looking at this part of the video, you wouldn't believe that it was speeded up, but it is twice as fast as real time. And so you see how I'm taking the time really to observe. And there's nothing wrong with that. Better to take the time and just enjoy the process. Even the little hints of pink that I put in at the start, when the rose was just a wet pink blob, you can see them, and I can use that as my guide as to where the centre is. Quite relaxing really to watch. I think it's more relaxing to watch than it is to actually do. I don't like to do pencil lines, because you see pencil lines with such a pale, delicate colour as well. We would see the pencil lines. So going in with paint is for me the only way to go. Got to be a bit braver now, because this is the heart of the rose and therefore has more shading, more intense pink. And if you are going to have a go at this, tell yourself it's all done in stages. We don't have to arrive immediately at the destination. Enjoy the journey and just keep adding colour and adding contrast, and you'll get there. Now I'm getting to the heart of the rose. And I think I'm going to leave it to dry now, because there are some lines that are too harsh, but I need it to dry before we go on to the next process. And it is dry now, and I have the acrylic flat, our magic brush, which we say here in the gallery. I'm just using the damp acrylic brush just to move some of those lines so they're a little bit more blended. We're going to go in with more detail later, but this brush does that job well. Whilst we're using the yellow brush, the acrylic flat, I'm going to also define the stems of the roses, and I'm taking out the colour or just dampening the area where they run, just so that I can add paint to the damp area. Because we make a broader kind of, well, the right thickness really for a rose stem, we can then go in with the paint, as you see I'm doing now, and run the colour along the bottom line of the stem, and it will run into the damp area created by the acrylic brush. So we don't need to do two double lines like tram lines. We just put one line in and let the colour run. And this is a far better way of just defining the stems for returning to them later. You can see I've done the detail on the other two roses too, in the same way. And I'm adding a little leaf now, just very basic for a start, just so I know exactly where it is. I can refer to it. Okay, so now we can see that the composition is coming together. And you can see the background has dried, and we do have some movement in the background. And now we can start to consolidate the details of the rose by adding more shading. Now I'm working with the same two palettes, the Payne's Grey Indian Red palette and the Permanent Rose palette, and adding shading in areas where, and I'm still, believe it or not, still working from the roses themselves. You can just see the end of the tray there at the top left of the picture, and the roses are still there, a little bit more saggy but still there. And I do prefer, once I've started to work from real life, I do prefer to stick with it if I can, and the roses are there for me, so that's good. You can see as soon as we start to put extra shading, the rose itself pops out and becomes more visible and more real and has more depth. And the lines that I moved gently with the acrylic brush, now I can start to add shading along those lines to give more information. This is quite a drastic move. You think, oh, it's too dark, it looks too dark. But remember that the watercolour will dry lighter. So you have to be brave and go a little bit beyond your comfort zone. And remember, these roses are really dying. They're losing their structure, they're losing their colour as well. And so they're not bright and beautiful. They have a beauty which is different but lovely, and so the colours are more sombre and more delicate, which I find attractive really. Must be something to do with my age, I suppose, but there we are. We're stuck with that. But you can see on the left hand side we're adding more shading because this is the side that is in shadow. I'm starting to enjoy this now. Painting a picture like this is always a roller coaster. You think, oh, I'm okay, I'm happy with that bit, I don't like this bit, and you just have a roller coaster of successes and failures. But you see it as it is. And I have the other two to do, which I've done now, as you see, and they are dry. Now I'm starting to think about giving them a place on the tray, making their presence felt with shadows. Shadows are important, as we know. They give depth to a painting. The object is now interacting with the environment it's in, and I'm still using the real roses. Moved back down to the gallery now. I think it's a little bit warmer today, so that's good. And the shade colour is the green with more Payne's Grey added to give it more depth of colour. And you can see, because the cloth they're placed on undulates, sometimes the shading is right against the stem, and at other times it's below the stem because of the way the fabric moves. I'm just adding the colour and then moving it a little, but I'm trying to keep it the same colour value. And although we can't see the roses themselves, I'm referring to them all the time to look at the intense shadows that sit below the rose as they sit on the fabric. Quite a dark blue-green shadow. I'm putting it on and then just putting it on with the liner and then washing it out with the mop brush. So it's intense near the object and fades away to nothing beyond that. You can see I'm doing it, trying to keep the wiggly lines, not being too simplistic with the application of paint, and looking at the objects to see where those shadows really are. And then coming back to meet it with clean water on the mop brush. Now at this point I started to think, should I leave it as it is, with just a vague notion of the background? I decided not to. I decided to carry on with the background detail. Let me know if you think I made the right decision, because I still don't know really. I did like it very much at that stage, but here I'm going in now with more shading because I want to give more credibility, more detail to the blue-green background. As I said, painting a picture like this is a roller coaster of opinions and likes and dislikes. That's just how it is. So I'm looking at the folds in the fabric and adding dark shading. You can see them in the top left-hand corner, and that's the image that I'm trying to at least partially replicate. I'm not doing them all because there are too many to do all of them. Same principle, add the colour, come to meet it with the clean mop brush, just wet with clean water. Now I think at this stage my head gets in the way because I'm concentrating so much. I've completely forgotten about the camera and I move too much. So apologies for that. Before I completely block out what I'm doing, it's just my camera skills are not always spot on. I hope we can work around it, but there we are. Can't really stop and start again. Once it's done, it's done. You can see what I'm trying to create here. More detail. There's a fold in the fabric there that I just want to try and create. Completely blotted it out now. Sorry about that. It's not until I come to edit it that I see these faults. And by then it's too late. I'm gradually working my way along. And I've got this area where we see the stem and then we don't see the stem because there's a fold of fabric comes over the top. And I can't really decide whether I should keep that or not. But I'm doing it anyway for the moment. But it does need work. I'll have to go back to that. I do go back to it, as I'll explain in a moment. Got one brush in one hand, the liner in the other, because it's alternating the two quite speedily. And so there we have the finished picture and the model that we used with the roses, and also the bouquet, the original bouquet. Beautiful. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you watched it throughout all the different stages, the journey we went to create the image here from these beautiful flowers. Unbelievably, they're still hanging on in there. So beautiful. I'm going to keep them, see if they'll dry. Who knows, I may paint them again. Just a wonderful adventure. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. I really appreciate your support and interest, and I look forward to your feedback too. When you do subscribe, don't forget to ring the bell, and then you'll receive notifications of my next videos. I have quite a few planned, dealing with different subjects, different techniques, to help you to enjoy your watercolour painting. So until the next time, thank you for watching. Happy painting. Bye.